Thank you for meeting me today.
Thank you for having me.
So I just wanted to start off by asking you what exactly happened while you were a little girl. How your dad or stepdad, or not, your adoptive dad treated you.
He had, knowing in hindsight now, in retrospect, he had been abused himself by siblings. So he repeated what was done to him to me and several others, but I was one of his victims. When I was younger, I used to justify him doing that to sexually abuse me because I wasn't his blood. And that was a way to excuse him, in essence, because he adopted me when I was very young. So the sexual abuse started when I was 3. And when I was 7 or 8, he was exposed by a different family member. So CPS came to our home and exposed him and got me out of the home. And they rescued me. So from 3 to 7 is when I was experiencing sexual abuse.
Okay, and during that happening to you, did you understand what was going on?
Not at all. I thought it was normal. And there was a sense of normality to it. I also started to show symptoms of being abused. Most children that are abused, they begin to masturbate. And so I started to do that. And I would even do it at school. And my kindergarten teacher is the one that noticed it, called a parent-teacher conference. And I remember I was in trouble for something that I thought was normal. And during that parent-teacher conference, my dad called me cochina. And that was the first time I knew that something was wrong. But other than that, I never knew it was wrong. Because in essence, it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved him. And I trusted him. So when the teacher had explained what I was doing and what she caught me doing, for him to be a two-face was a shock to me. It was the first shock. Is why am I cochina?
Yeah. So after you started to realize what he was doing, did you finally view it as something bad and hated him for it, or?
Not until I was in a foster home where I understood around 12 that it was wrong. When we had court, I was taken away from CPS without them explaining why. I just knew one day they showed up, ripped me out of my mom's care. So my goal was to come back. The next time I seen my mom and dad was in court. I was about Hadassah's age, 9. And the judge had asked me, does your dad touch your vagina? And I said, yes. And I remember seeing his face, and he told me no, and I was like, but you do. When he put his head down, what I did not know was that there was other victims. So at that time, my aunts and his family, they were adamant about his innocence, which you want that to be the truth. So I was looked at as the liar. So for years, I never wanted to think about it because I felt guilty for putting him in jail for 10 years.
Did other family members
prosecute?
Yeah.
Yes. So it was me and cousin. He got 5 years for each of us. I did not speak to my older cousin about it until I was much older because it was unspoken. And the victims were actually the ones shunned out of the family.
Say that, okay, so if you were able to change what had happened to you as a little girl, would you? Why or why not?
Oh my God, I could cry for that one. Because of the women that I've helped now, I would never want to change that. And there was something in me that knew that it was never God's fault since I was younger. And it never stopped me from wanting to live. I knew it was separate. I don't know how, But when I would hear women be mad that they were raped, they would be mad at God. They would be mad at... I somehow knew it was not Creator. So my animosity manifested in devaluing who I was. But never did I blame God. I don't know how. And I maintain that stance. Because it's choice. But I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that it wasn't Creator. And the thing that I hated most was that my dad, I'm not going to base it off Catholicism alone, because Christianity's guilty, Buddhism, monks, it's in every religion. But I would always hear him, when I started being an adult, I faced him. Did you do this to me? Because I didn't have memories for a little while. And he would say, God is my witness. Well, I didn't know God, so I would say, oh, he's telling the truth. I would buy that truth, because I wanted it to be the truth. But it wasn't. So me facing it, I would have loved to have a father figure. I don't know what that's like. But when I accepted God, he's flattered me over and over. So I can't say that I've missed out. But I also I'll never know. So I can't change it, and I can't, if I desire that, will that stumble me?
How did the incident make you grow into the person that you are today?
My daughter. I was able to rescue my daughter. I knew it. I could see it in her face that something was wrong. And I know what it's like to keep alive for the sake of maintaining a front. That's what I saw my entire family do for my dad. And my cousins would lie for him. So when I came up and said, yes, he is responsible. My cousin Melissa's not a liar. Neither is Sonia. About 6 more of our cousins came forward and told the truth about my dad. And then another wave, and then another wave. So he has probably potentially over 30 victims. And I always ask myself, why do people keep quiet to maintain that front? We're conditioned as a society to do that. For the sake of religion, to make our God look good. It doesn't matter which route, the family's integrity. And I was desperate to do the opposite. And I believe God gave me solitude so that I was never interested in maintaining the front. So when my daughter was abused, I never wanted that to be her truth. So I was able to see it right away. And when I asked her who's hurting her, she didn't want to tell me. And I said, it's my job to protect you, not your job to protect me, which is what most children do for the sake of the family's front. And that is not God. And he taught me that very, very young. So if I live that to rescue my daughter, and then when she told, 6 of her classmates went forward and told on them, uncles, friends, fathers, sexually abusing them, the principal called me and said she was a hero.
It's amazing to see how God works through.
I know, it was crazy. I remember she told one of her friends the very same thing. It's not your job to protect your mom. And then she would bring little girlfriends over to my house, to our house, to talk about it. So we reported a lot of people.
Go Mayra. Superhero. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
For any of the girls that may be going through what you have gone through, what advice would you give them?
I would say that secrets make you sick. And the biggest fear is to not be protected. If you tell the truth, who's going to believe you? Is your mom going to disregard you? Is she not going to believe you? Are you going to hate her if she doesn't protect you? If she sweeps it under the rug? Whatever is the fear that may come to pass, because it does happen, where they don't believe you, you're disregarded, you're shunned. The one person that has to protect you is you. You have to protect you, even if nobody does. Tell the truth and say it immediately.
How would you make people know that you're telling the truth, even though they think that
it could be a lie?
Yeah.
I have unfortunately met those that have lied, but that has to be not the forefront of the concern. The truth does reveal itself, so it's inevitable. If there's no evidence and that's the concern, I wouldn't wait for evidence. If it's voiced out, it's voiced out, and it begins a platform. There are those that investigate. There are other things that have happened. Maybe it'll ignite somebody else to share. So now that there's 2 or 3 or more, how do you corner, how do you undo that? So I would say that shouldn't be the primary factor, is evidence, shouldn't be. But I do get the validity of that. Like, how can I prove? Luckily, there's so much like cell phones and setups and all these things. If there's a routine for the abuser, you can set them up.
Well, thank you.
It's my idea, but I would say it's a high risk, but it's a higher risk for you to stay quiet.
So voice whatever's happening to you.
Yeah.
No matter how it affects the people around you, or
no matter it. If you're concerned that your world will fall apart, it will. But good. Because
but
that
not because
world,
of you.
Yeah, and that world is built off of a very, very ill foundation. If you destroy your family, good. If you cause things to collapse, good. If you're protecting somebody because they're financially providing, there's other avenues. But let that world that you're in fall apart. It's supposed to, because it's not the right foundation. If your family has to start over, they will. It's not worth the trade-off. And there will be more victims. There's always more victims.
Well, thank you for allowing me to interview. I know this was a very sensitive topic, so
yeah,
I'm glad that you were open to doing this interview.
Yes, you're welcome.